think, again, sometimes we make it really complicated and it's not. We are shifting beyond material understanding of the world, which means in the material understanding of the world, to make something happen in the world, it has to exist, first of all, between this very narrow realm of limitations. What we believe is possible is generally the edges of that limitation. A lot of what defines what we believe is possible is our logical understanding of the world. And that logical understanding of the world is in part and parcel expressed through science and the scientific process, right? Science says, I have an idea. Let me see if it's true or not. I'm going to create a hypothesis. I'm going to set up an experiment. I'm going to repeat this experiment over and over again enough times to where I can create math, the statistical validation that whatever I found out from my experimentation is either true or not, X percentage of the time. And we take that data, that set of data, and we then define that as truth, right? This is what we believe is possible because science has proved it. First of all, I just want to throw this out here. There's a lot of research now, especially based on people's understanding now of how perception creates. There's a lot of new research coming out that shows that about 70% of science experiments, especially, by the way, in the hard sciences like chemistry and biology, because they don't do double-blind studies in hard sciences, that about 70% of scientific data is malleable. And it's subject to the perception of the experimenter, and that lots of these experiments can actually be duplicated because the scientist conducting the experiments has a different perception than the original scientist, changing the outcome of the science. Okay, that's the first piece. So science isn't actually as hard as we think it is. It isn't as hard and fixed as we think it is. Number two, it's the exception that creates mutation, right? It's exceptions that creates mutation. We see that in the nature of how the circuits work in the chart. And if I tell you a story, and I told you guys this story a few weeks ago, I talked about, I can't remember the lady's name, Barbara Snyder's, I think her name. The case of the woman. There was a case of a woman who had terminal end stage multiple sclerosis, who was in a fetal position and dying, had days to live. And a group of her, the hometown where she came from, got together and prayed for her. And she had a spontaneous recovery because people sat around her bed and read these prayers to her. She had an incredible spontaneous recovery where she went from being comatose in a fetal state with atrophied muscles and on a respirator to standing up and dancing around the room within an hour. Those mutative experiences, those things that happen outside the predictable realm of what's possible, start stretching the boundaries of the story of what's possible for all of humanity. You can hear a story like that, and maybe you have a disease that is life-threatening. You hear a story like that, all of a sudden it changes your range of possibility quite significantly, right? And when we change the range of what's possible for ourselves, we change the boundaries around which we can create. And our creativity and the expansiveness of what's possible goes up a millionfold. So science tells us, if we look at the data, right, that we're doomed, right? Science, if you go to CNN, you'll see it every day, all the new kinds of statistics that show how doomed we are, right? We're doomed. We're going to run out of food. We're going to run out of water. We're going to run out of, we're at finite carrying capacity on the planet. Yeah, maybe. But if we look at, the possibility that there's a solution to this situation that hasn't been discovered yet in the hard world, in the physical world, but that it's out there, then the data around being doomed is false. Think about this for a minute. There was a time in the world where if you said, oh, we're going to build a rocket ship and go to the moon, people would have thought you were crazy, right? I think the more of us who hold the idea that it's possible for us to create a world of sustainable resources and sustainable peace, and the fact that I can say these words means my brain is translating a potential out of the quantum field and putting it into language. The fact that I can articulate this idea and put it out into the world tells us all that this is a possibility. It hasn't been manifested yet, but it's possible. And that when we operate from a place of possibility and faith with this Gate 55, which is where we're moving, there are elegant solutions available to the dilemmas facing humanity right now, but we just haven't tapped into them yet. and that it is up to those of us who are aware and conscious as powerful creators to hold a vision of those possibilities as part of anchoring the frequency of that energy in the collective in order for us to begin the process of creating the opening for those right brilliant people wherever they may be to find the physical third dimensional way to bring that idea into form on the planet. So we're creating that right now. Those of you who are like, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's create a world of sustainable resources and a world of sustainable peace. Let's build a world where everybody gets along and everybody has enough and all the kids get the education they need and everybody's celebrated for the unique role they play in the cosmic plant tapestry of humanity. If you have that idea within you right now, you're already doing your part to create that. And it doesn't matter whether you're doing that naked under a moon with a bunch of crystals or if you're doing that from your cubicle while you process an Excel spreadsheet. If you have that thought and you hold that energy, you're adding to the evolution of humanity and to the story of what's possible. And you can break the limitations of science or patterns and logic by moving to creating from a place of faith.